Hey, I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue, and I used to think that my ceramic Kamados were heavy, and that's until the folks from Goldens came along and said, hold my beer. So if you've been here before, you know I love Kamados. Using the vehicle analogy, they are the sports utility vehicle of the automotive world. They're not a pickup truck, they're not a sports car, they're not a fuel efficient Prius, but they can do a little bit of all those things really well, which is why sports utility vehicles have quickly become the best selling category. And for many of the same reasons, I love Kamado style grills, because we can go from smoking a brisket to cooking a pizza to searing a steak, all inside of a single grill. So when there's an opportunity to test a brand new one, you know I am all over it. So in today's video, I'm going to cover three things. First, I'm going to introduce you to the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado, do a bit of a walkthrough. Next, I'm going to do a cook on it. We're going to do a tomahawk reverse seared steak. This will be my second cook on the Goldens Cast Iron, and that'll lead into our third and final chapter, which are some of the first impressions. How are some of the marketing claims, the features and benefits stacking up in real life, and what am I looking to test and find out in my extended review? If you heard me say this before, I like to test products over a couple months versus the unboxing and here's what I think, because without fail, you discover things that don't work out as you thought they would with the benefit of time and more tests. And I already have a couple ideas that I want some further data and testing to find out if the Goldens Kamado is the real deal. So let's get down to the brass tacks, or I should say cast iron tacks, which is where did this come from? I love to be transparent in my videos and let you know what I bought versus what I've received for free. And so I did not purchase this grill. In fact, Goldens has nothing to do with this video. This grill was provided to me from a local retailer, Gospel Barbecue, which is a retailer as well as distributor of some of my favorite grilling and smoking products. And they took this out of their pool of inventory and said, we'd love to see you test it. So after today's video, if you don't mind, please go to Gospel Barbecue's website and or social channels and give them a follow. I'm sure they would appreciate it, and it would also help make future videos like this possible. I'm not being paid by Gospel or by Goldens, and I don't receive an affiliate sale or commission from anything that you buy from them, but I wanted to let you know in full disclosure, I didn't go out and buy this. This grill was provided to me. Speaking of generous support, I also have permission at the end next year when we've done every possible test that I can think of, or you're gonna ask me in the comments down below, and we put the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado through its paces, I'm gonna give it away. And the only way that you're entered for that giveaway is by going to my website, www.smokingdadbarbecue.com, and signing up for the newsletter. That's the sole source that you'll be entered in all future giveaways. So go ahead and do that as well at the end of the video to be entered for the giveaway next year. So now that you've got full disclosure and transparency on where this product came from, let's get into an overview of the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado. So I'll get you right back to my first impressions of the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado, but first I want to thank Original Grain for sponsoring today's video. Time is running out on the save 40% on Original Grain. They're running a 30% off sale that's stackable with my save 10% code that I'll mention at the end of this quick little clip, and that brings your total savings to 40%. So if you find yourself like me looking for the perfect accessory, check out the watch quiz on originalgrain.com to find the perfect watch for you, dad, uncle, grandpa, brother, you name it, the list goes on. You're sure to find something that fits your fancy, or if you're giving this for a gift this holiday season, something that meets their fancy. Anything for the whiskey lover to music lover with guitars to TRD to reclaimed plastics, woods, and materials, you are sure to find a partnership and or a sustainable and responsibly sourced material that aligns with your interests and passions. Nearly 2 years ago, I picked up my first Original Grain watches. I went with the Hawaiian Koa barrel wood as well as the Grill Master series with mesquite. But recently this year, I've added two extra additions. One, a smartwatch band, which is available for something like my Apple Watch if I want to dress that up heading out on a date night, as well as the watch that started it all for Original Grain, the Rosewood Classic, which is even more beautiful in person. One of the reasons I love Original Grain is they are veteran founded out of the Pacific Northwest, small family business. I'm a big fan of small business, but that it's also a small business with a cause. Whether that's finding a way to use plastics that have been harvested from the ocean, replanting trees, or using fallen materials that would otherwise go to waste to turn out some stunning products. The craftsmanship and quality is perhaps only matched by equally awesome customer service. So if you happen to pick a gift up for yourself or a loved one and they aren't absolutely thrilled, Original Grain will buy that back and help connect you with the absolute perfect watch that you're looking for. Check out all the details on the originalgrain.com website, and while you're there, be sure to take advantage of that 30% off sale along with my additional save 10% using code SMOKING to bring your total savings up to 40%. Now, back to the action. So I brought with me some notes so I don't forget some important features, specs, or to try and cut down the amount of corrections and edit that I need to put text on the screen saying, nope, I was wrong. This is the actual fact. So in no particular order, let's go through a couple of the specs, highlights, and features of the Golden Cast Iron Kamado. Just like Primo, this is made in the US of A, and it is a beast when it comes to its curb weight. So despite its size, very similar to a classic Series 3, this weighs 460 pounds versus 262 pounds for the Series 3 Kamado Joe. That's something I didn't really notice when the team from Gospel Barbecue was loading it in the back of my truck using a forklift, but getting a couple of buddies to help me get it out of the truck, you definitely notice the extra curb weight of the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado. Well, a classic series, you could almost manhandle into a cart on your own. Not recommended. Definitely recommend getting a friend to help you do that, but in a pinch, you can do it. No such He-Man Hercules moments are going to work, at least not for me, getting this into the cart, as I had to rely on the charity and goodwill and strength of a couple friends in order to get this out of the truck, onto its cart, and into the backyard. Once it's here, it does have large wheels, so these are made out of tractor pulleys with some added material to look really cool and rustic, along with these swivel casters. We can get it into position, but definitely if weight is a buying criteria for you, the Goldens delivers in spades. Perhaps another thing that I get asked about most, and maybe why the comments feed has filled up with requests to review the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado, is its indestructible nature. So tied to that weight is a complete cast iron construction. The only sort of stainless steel bits you can see down here in our bottom draft door. Now this is something I get asked so often. I even did a video. I had a warranty replacement base from a friend of a Kamado Joe, and I tested just how hard they are to break. And the spoiler version, if you haven't seen that, it's a lot more difficult than I thought. I got the temperature way up, threw in some water, threw in some ice. That wasn't enough. I tried using tension. I tried using spot freezing along with blast heat. And really the only way that I was able to break it is the Humpty Dumpty method and push it off of the wall. But even that is not going to cause a problem for the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado, because it is, well, I think completely indestructible. Now, another question that you might have is, well, hang on a second. I have cast iron. I've left it out accidentally overnight in the rain. Is that going to rust? So while this may be made from cast iron, it's also got a powder coating, weatherproof finish. And I've had this for about 8 weeks sitting outside in the great outdoors, just like this. And there's no signs of any rust or weathering going on. So that's a nice feature. Something that's unique in the Kamado space, really only the Weber Summit so far I've discovered has this, but there's not a band or a hinge connection where we're strapping a band to our hinge. It's completely integrated. So you'll see here, I'll show you up close. This is just dome in a complete casting with a large spring to remove some of that weight. But that means there's no bands to adjust, causing an overbite, an underbite. This is something that showed up all the time early days in the Big Green Egg forum, is where people didn't test their band tension and the top of their Big Green Egg would fall out and smash onto the ground. And so just like the Weber Summit, the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado has no such worry, as there's no bands to maintain here. Well, I hope you like cast iron, because that theme continues. Our control regulator on top is also cast iron, and this from a function perspective is a little bit more similar to the regulator cap that I had from Big Green Egg, which also has sort of a similar damper motion from left to right where we control our temperatures. But unlike the Big Green Egg regulator, which comes with a rain umbrella, if you will, as an optional accessory to keep rain out of it, or the Primo vent cap, or the Kamado Joe control tower, the one thing I noticed right away here is the absence of a very popular innovation that all leading Kamados have started to adopt, which is providing some weatherproof protection. But this is very industrial and sticking with the cast iron theme on the outside, just as well as on the inside. The inside is one of the areas that I'm perhaps most intrigued by. Back again, going to Big Green Egg days, when people's convector, I believe it's called now, which is the heat deflector if you don't have the expander accessory kit, which has a more similar divide and conquer rack setup found in the Kamado Joe, if that ceramic would crack, there were replacement cast iron heat deflectors, which would serve as not only your heat deflector, but also provide an additional grilling surface. And that is what the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado has. And I'm gonna use and show you in the next chapter in terms of how I cooked that tomahawk, and use that not only as my heat deflector, but as well as my searing plate. The grids are also cast iron, and they have little legs on them, so you can stack them on top of one another and still close your dome. You can flip them upside down for a lower profile position, and or go at it normally and put them side by side, and again, completely cast iron. Sticking, as I said, with the cast iron theme, so too is the firebox. But this is an area that's been interesting to see different manufacturers come up with solutions in terms of increasing durability in a high stress area. I went through several ceramic fireboxes in my Big Green Egg. They're just prone to crack because they're all one piece. So when Kamado Joe came out with a multi-piece firebox that allows for expansion and contraction, that was something that I was really interested in. The Goldens team here has just gone nuclear with durability and said, I'm going to give a complete one-piece cast iron firebox. So there's nothing here to expand or contract from a ceramic perspective, as it's sticking with the same cast iron durability theme all the way through. I will say, while that might be an advantage in terms of durability, I did notice this is one potential thing we'll have to test in a drawback, as unlike Big Green Eggs now with a basket, or Kamado Joe Series 3, which come with a charcoal basket, or anybody who has a Kamado and has added something like a kick ash basket where you remove your fire grate, you install your basket, and that gives you direct access to the ash below. This is not possible in the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado, as the fire grate is integrated right into the firebox, and so that negates the advantages of, or the utility of having a charcoal fire basket, as the only way that we can remove those ashes is going old school, like I did once with my Big Green Egg, is getting an ash tool and scooping the ash out, which is not provided in standard accessories on the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado. Finally, it wouldn't be a first look without addressing the elephant in the room, which is pricing. So as spec'd with what you see here, which is the deflector plate, the tool to remove it, and not including the cart side tables, this unit is priced at $28.58 US. If I add the side shelves for a little bit more utility, that brings the total to $3,599 total. So inexpensive. This is not indestructible. No arguing that. Does that prove out in terms of how it cooks, how it performs? Time will tell. So speaking of that, why don't I take you back to a few days ago when I did my second cook. My first cook was a low and slow pulled pork on the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado. For my first official cook, we're gonna do a tomahawk ribeye. That's gonna give me a chance to test the cast iron grates as well as that heat deflector slash sear surface. That's why I picked a tomahawk for our cook. And when you rejoin me after the cook, I'll share some of my impressions with just 2 cooks under the belt in terms of what I'm looking for moving forward. As there's already 3 questions that have come to mind in terms of what I want to see if the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado is up to the task. Okay, our tomahawk looks amazing from the overnight dry brine, so I'm going to use a binder. I love adding a little bit of truffle hot sauce. This is expensive, so don't use a bunch, but it adds some great umami from the truffle oil. A little bit of fresh cracked black pepper. Actually, I'll do that before I glove up so that I've got a bit of a cap full here that we can add some pepper, along with our garlic. The tallow that I've melted here is my holiday beef tallow. This has got truffle, garlic, thyme, a whole bunch of great flavors, and it's going to be absolutely amazing, especially as we get around this time of year in the holidays. It really is going to amp up this tomahawk, and it's an excuse for me to try my new Spitjack injector. I broke my original meat injector when I was doing my Thanksgiving turkey video. This was on back order. It took a while to come in. It's very expensive, so I don't know yet if it's worth the investment, but it has a whole bunch of different ends on it, including this sort of perforated probe, which should help make distributing our tallow a little bit more easier. All right, that feels like all we're gonna get in the tomahawk. Let's go fire up our grill, let those seasonings adhere even better to our tomahawk. So this takes me back to some of my earlier Kamado days when we have a fire grate, but unlike with a fire grate, which is removable, or a charcoal basket that comes right out, the fire grate here is integrated right into the firebox. So I'm just moving the charcoal around in order to get some of this ash to fall through. Grab our Grill Blazer grill gun, fire that up. Drop in our cast iron heat deflector and our cooking grids. Adjust our top damper to about a finger, and I'll make any micro adjustments to get us in the 250 to 270 degrees Fahrenheit range. All right, let's get it on. Perfect. Nice spot here in the middle. Close that up. Okay, meter says it's time to get our steak off, let it rest. Let's find a spot for our grid grates here. Be right back. Let's see where we're at for surface temperatures here from our indirect cook. Oh, not bad. So that was just barely over 200 degrees on the dome, 250 at the grate, and we're already at 481 degrees surface temperature. So I don't need to open the vents up too much more, and we'll be ready to sear. Okay, we're nearly up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit on the tell-true. Let's get another IR gun reading. I think we should be close. So about an average of 606 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's going to be great for our cast iron sear. Let's grab our tomahawk. Since we already have some of that tallow rendering out, it's going to give us a great sear surface. So optional but recommended. I like a little bit of a flambe sear, and I want to see how the cast iron insert does. So safety advice, always be wearing high heat gloves if you're going to do any live fire flaming, as you're going to get a lot of flambe action. Plus another tip is use a shot glass if you're a little bit worried. I've seen too many people start to pour some whiskey and then be surprised by the flame action that happens, and then in a panic you dump even more and turn your grill into a fireball. So let's add a little bit of whiskey for a flambe. Get the other side. Perfect. I think that crust looks awesome. Let's go slice into it. Pull our meter out, it's done its job. Slice into it, see how it looks. Perfect, nice even, pretty even medium rare, top to bottom. A little bit more here, this must have been the side that was exposed during cooking, but nice thin band of crust from our sear. Let's get a couple slices. Cheers. I already know what I think, but I'm going to use the excuse of needing another taste, just to confirm. Cheers. Well, I love tomahawks, and everything that we did to this tomahawk tastes absolutely amazing. Started with great steak. This is a prime grade tomahawk ribeye, and even if we did nothing to it, it's already going to be absolutely amazing. Next, we added in the overnight salt dry brine, and then we infused it with a ton of flavor, including holiday flavored beef tallow, and all those notes are just coming out deep inside the steak. You can't otherwise impart that level of flavor. As I start to get towards the crust, you sort of get the umami effect from the truffle oil that we've added as our binder, to garlic, pepper, and the nutty flavor that you get from a flambe sear. This just is coming together absolutely amazing. But those are all the things that we did, and we could do this on any grill. What I'm not picking up is a ton of flavor. Now, I don't like to smoke my steaks, so I'm not looking for smoke here, but because maybe we were using the indirect baffle plate to cook and then sear, there's a lot less flavor from charcoal and or fire in this particular steak. Keep in mind, again, this is only cook number 2 after a pulled pork, so I definitely think we have a little bit of work to do to figure out our workflow in terms of, should we remove the deflector plate, should we leave it in? As amazing of a steak as this is, I'm not sure if I'd be able to tell that big of a difference. So maybe a little bit of work to do on the next 6 months or so as we head into our review phase. Speaking of the review phase, let's go into some first impressions. Well, maybe tomorrow when there's some better daylight. For me, it'll feel like a good night's rest. For you, it'll feel just like that. So first impressions, and again, keep in mind, this is only 2 cooks. I prefer to test products over several months, ideally up to 6 if possible, because all the things that you think maybe early on, sometimes I've had complete different results with either more experience or things that started to work really well, maybe haven't held up. And so we will adjust this as we go on. But there's already 3 things that are on my list to look for in future cooks. And anything that you add down in the comments, I'll be sure to add. But my 3 things after 2 cooks are as follows. So in no particular order, the first one that I'm looking at is energy efficiency. So Greg from Ballistic Barbecue, in his review of the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado, shared as a benefit that this thing ran 27 hours on a load of fuel. And admittedly, this is something that I originally was really attracted to all Kamados from a form factor perspective. If you've ever cooked a brisket on a Weber Smoky Mountain or a kettle, the idea of not running out of fuel in a mid-cook, something like a brisket or pulled pork, is really attractive. So the efficiency of Kamados is maybe a benefit that pulls a lot of people into the Kamado category. But as I've learned on a couple of years ago, I picked up an offset for myself just to compare. I was curious why what I was turning on a Kamado tasted so different, so far off what I was able to turn out on my offset smoker. So to help make those side-by-side comparisons and pick up little ideas that I can use to help improve what I was turning out on my Kamado Joe, I've been benchmarking against an offset. And the short version of that discovery here is fuel is flavor, and burning less fuel does not impart more flavor. And so I want to really do a couple tests with some data and see, are we more, less, a comparable efficiency here with cast iron versus ceramics as our Kamado insulator, if you will, in terms of what it's made out of. Second on the list is ease of use and versatility. Now, while there is an option with a cart and you can add that, that again significantly increases the price. So I'm not really going to judge just that since I don't have a model. I was afraid to ask after Gospel provided me with a free Kamado for this test to nitpick on something like not having the side shelves, but I want to test the versatility in terms of the hinge design, the cap in terms of how we control temperatures, being able to add and remove our grates, as well as that cast iron heat deflector plate. How does that all work together in terms of ease of use? And where I think we really will notice some differences, or at least in the first 2 cooks, even something like removing the ash now that we have a solid 1-piece cast iron firebox. Does this matter? You know, I don't know, time will tell. That's one of the questions in terms of the ease of use and versatility, particularly when I partner that with point 3, which is the performance benefits versus the cost, in terms of we're paying a significant premium so far, for no arguments here, on indestructibility as a potential benefit, but does that come at the cost of any performance? And so by using things like my IR gun to compare surface temperatures, I already noticed in that tomahawk steak that even keeping below a 300-degree Fahrenheit ambient temperature, that we were getting searing temperatures of 600 to 700 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the spot, on our infrared IR gun. And this, compared to a similar test that I did on my Kamado Joe earlier this year, is higher, running at the exact same temperature. So what does this do to accelerate how our food cooks, or potentially lead to overdone bottoms on things like brisket at a hotter and faster temperature, where I know from many, many tests that we get a better result in terms of smoke quality? So those are the 3 things that I came up with. Anything else that you'd like to see added to that list in terms of what I'll be looking for in future videos, let me know down in the comments. I'll be sure to add that to upcoming videos. That's it for today, though. I'm James from Smoky Dad Barbecue, signing off. Thanks again to the team from Gospel Barbecue for making this possible and donating one of your inventory units. But that's it for today. I'm James from Smoky Dad Barbecue, signing off. Remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.